No matter what. It's coming from 1 Samuel 18, verse 13 through 16. And in verse 13, it says, therefore Saul removed him from him and made him his captain over 1,000. And he went out and came in before the people. So you're seeing that Saul doesn't want to be a part of David. And you're looking at your marriage and saying, okay, how do I get out of this? How do I get out of this problem? Right? It's always fighting. There's always something going wrong. But the very fact that you hang in there and you hold into your role as being the wife or the husband or the child within that relationship means that God says, okay, since they're going to hold on to what I've joined together, that means I have to step up and do the work. Not that he's not stepping up already, but he's just going to work that much more towards your goals of peace, happiness, and tranquility within your house. So with that being said, when we look at David, we're really rooting for David, but at the same time, we're thinking, David, why don't you just leave? Why don't you run away? Because it's not up for him to run away. This is something that God called him to be. So he has to learn to deal with it. It says no weapon formed against him will prosper. So what does that mean? Hang in there. Stick to the grind. It may feel as though you're getting hurt. It may feel as though you're being undermined, but that's only for a season. And in reference to those relationships that may be in your workplace or in your schooling, you may find that the people just naturally grow distant from you. Okay. Are you going to run after them? Maybe you go through a time where you try to run after them and prove to them that you're the same person, but in essence, they see change. And that's when you know God is within your life, because they see the change. And although they may not want to be a part of that change, it doesn't mean that God is not in the midst. And you have to understand that as being a person in God. So then in 14 it says, and David behaved himself wisely in all his ways. And the Lord was with him. Wherefore, when Saul saw that he behaved himself very wisely, he was afraid of him. So why is he afraid? Because of insecurities. But God teaches us that there is no fear in love. So what does that mean? We have to spend the time to love them beyond measure, beyond belief, so that they know that these changes are only for the bettering of your lives, not for you to be made better over them, but for that your lifestyles could be bettered, right? So that you can meet and reach more people. Sometimes God wants you to move out of that apartment. Sometimes he wants you to change the job. We immediately get scared and we withdraw ourselves from God with changes, but we need to learn to embrace those changes, because changes are good, especially when you're on the foundation of God. We don't know what waits for us if we stay the same place. For David, we see that perfectly, right? We're seeing that as he stayed and he continued to grind, he continued to work on himself. That's what it means when he got wiser in what he was doing. He didn't do what all the other people were doing. He was young. He was a ruddy child. He could go ahead and start dreaming about how he could become king. But in fact, he didn't do that, but he honed in on his role. And he said, how can I do it better? I'm telling you, it's a beautiful thing when you could hone in on what God wants you to do. As being a wife, as being a husband. Look, don't bring your work and the benefits of work or the drama of work into your house. We are first husbands and wives, and we have to acknowledge that. Put that aside. Let the fun you come out when you get home. That would take the stress out of any job. So in 16 it says, but all Israel and Judah loved David because he went out and came in before them. And you know what? Your spouse and the people who really matter in your life are going to love you as long as you're doing what is right. Not just doing things that they see is right, but you're asking God what he perceives as right. Because look, let's face it, we could be doing something that is very wrong, very outside of the will of God, and we feel as though it's right. Like an example, we could be cheating on our spouse and feel as though we're doing right because we're not bothering them with the sexual aspect, the emotional aspect, the physical aspect, the spiritual aspect even of the relationship. But you may learn that as you speak to them, they said, hey, I didn't know you wanted more out of me. Let's do that. You know, who knows? Don't think that you know everything about your spouse. And why I say that is because we already make up in our minds that if I speak to them about this, it's just going to be another argument. You're not considering that God is changing them every moment of the day. If there's 24 hours in the day, those are 24 hours that God has to change them. So, but are you changing with when God is changing? Your mind frames are not changing. Your feelings are not changing. So you feel as though the relationship is stagnant, staying the same, although it's ever moving. Which proves that maybe the problem is not in your spouse. Maybe the problem is within you. So no matter what, get to the truth. Get to the root cause of the matter. Get to where God could speak to you. Get to where you guys could see eye to eye on things. If you are dealing with financial problems or you're finding newfound wealth and you feel that the spouse is gaining insecurity about that, stop spending, right? Stop spending, start saving, start showing them where the money is going. Not in you, in us. Let us put towards a house. Let us put towards our savings. Let us put towards paying off the car, our bills. And you're going to soon realize that no matter what, you're going to be a great relationship and that no one could put a foot against it. God bless.